lawful solutions for Moors, Black Moors, Moorish Americans, Black Indians, African Americans, Moorish subjects, and all other naturalized or colonized colored people.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Moorish podcast. I'm here today with the Sultan of the Empire of Morocco, Kendon Bey, and myself, Amir Hassan El, Vice Prime Minister. We're here to discuss a couple topics and get the Sultan's opinion. My first question, Sultan, is why is the all caps name so important to the United States citizens? Can you explain the proper understanding of the all caps name?
Yes, thank you for the question.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of Moors, in general, they really understand that the all caps name is actually a part of the legal process when you're returning back to your Moroccan nationality, or returning back to the Empire of Morocco. And this just comes when you become a wordsmith and you understand the importance of words. But in our treaties, particular Article 15, Paragraph 1 of the Treaty of Madrid, it states that the Moorish subject has the right to repatriate back to the Empire of Morocco and come up under the protections of the empire. Well, from a legal standpoint, the Moorish subject is synonymous with your all caps name. So, from a legal standpoint or a procedure standpoint, the all caps name, it has to go through a legal process to where it lawfully comes back to the Empire of Morocco. So, as an example, a lot of Moors, they try to enforce their Moroccan nationality just with the Bey. I've seen videos and I heard Moors speak, and they say, well, if you go to a domestic court, you're saying, okay, well, my name is Kendrick Bey. I don't know who the all caps name is. I'm the living, live, flesh and blood person. Well, from the domestic court's perception, it's a legal process that has to take place that they're aware of, and it involves your all caps name. And again, this is why Article 15, Paragraph 1 of the Treaty of Madrid is so important, because that particular article, it allows the all caps name or the Moorish subject to lawfully repatriate back to the Empire of Morocco. And I just, feel like that's a very important detail that most Moors, they don't understand, because thus far we all been taught that the all caps name, it's not me, it's the devil. I don't have anything to do with it. But from a legal standpoint, you have to, bring the all caps name up out of the jurisdiction of the United States, the same way you do, with your Bey. But the Moorish subject is a very important concept that Moors have to understand. The Moorish subject is your all caps name, and you have to take the all caps name through a legal procedure of getting back to the Empire of Morocco, just as well as your Moroccan national name. And again, the courts, they understand this. So when anyone comes into their court, making any Moroccan national claims or any claims just dealing with international law, they have a step-by-step guideline that they have posted up, and they know the procedures. And, when you come in and you're saying you don't know who the all caps name is, it shows your competency, where you are and what you really understand about the law that you're trying to enforce. So I just feel like that was very important, for me to point out the difference between a competent Moor and a Moor that isn't competent in understanding the importance of your all caps name. Your all caps name, according to law, it actually has the right to repatriate back to being a Moroccan national. Are you?
Okay. So you're saying that Kendrick Johnson has to renounce his citizenship to the United States or whatever country he's in. And once he makes that renunciation, there's actually a process to do that?
Well, yes, Kendrick Bey, once Kendrick Bey is on the record with a Moorish judge, right, and renounces his United States citizenship, because it's like they're in coherent together, it's one and the same, then Kendrick Bay can take the form of Kendrick Johnson and now sign the renunciation documents, bringing Kendrick Johnson out of the jurisdiction of the United States.
Okay. And Kendrick Bay is not even on the books of the United States. Is that correct? And so therefore they're only concerned about Kendrick Johnson.
Correct.
Okay. So once Kendrick Johnson has renounced, then there should be an allegiance somewhere. Does Kendrick Johnson make the allegiance also, or just Kendrick Bay?
No, Kendrick Bay makes the allegiance, and Kendrick Johnson renounces the United States citizenship.
Okay. So once Kendrick Johnson has renounced, and then Kendrick Bay takes over as the flesh and blood, then Kendrick Johnson is protected, or that person that just have to use Kendrick Bay all the time?
Well, no, the legal personality Kendrick Johnson, he still exists, but it just comes up under the protection of the Empire of Morocco. So the all caps name, it still will exist. It still can be used in commerce, but the only difference is the Empire of Morocco has criminal and civil jurisdiction over it now instead of the United States.
Okay, that's a big difference. So you're saying that as a Moroccan national, I can still use Kendrick Johnson to get an apartment, get a job, so on and so forth, but
Correct.
It's just protected. So I'm able to do all kinds of business, open an account under Kendrick Johnson, but at the same time, he's protected by the Empire of Morocco.
Correct. The Empire of Morocco has subject matter jurisdiction, dealing with the United States, as well as any dispute between a Moroccan and an American. Council court is the proper venue. So once the first legal procedure takes place that we just spoke about with Kendrick Johnson, renouncing his United States citizenship, and Kendrick Bay pledging his oath in allegiance to the Empire of Morocco, that allows the Empire of Morocco to have jurisdiction over Kendrick Johnson and Kendrick Bay, which, they're one and the same in all matters of, criminal and civil. So again, that's a big adjustment, but the legal procedure has to take place for that transition to be lawful in a court of law. And that's what the Moors, I don't feel like they understand that fine detail, as well as, what a proper legal argument is. That's a big thing that I see most Moors, they don't understand, what is a legal argument? And, a lot of Moors, they have pain, and a lot of Moors try to use their actual pain as a legal argument. But, the more that you study law, you understand the procedure of law, it is law is no gray area. It's either is it or it's not. And that's what Moors have to grow in the understanding of. The law is in a strict sense. So it's nothing really vague, left unsettled when it comes to law and a legal argument, whether it's you enforcing, your Moroccan nationality or, it's some type of American law.
Let me ask you this. There's a lot of people who will be listening to this interview, and they have no understanding. What do you mean by legal argument? Can you explain it to them? A legal argument, what does that mean? Because you said it's not emotional, it's not personal. Then what is it?
What a legal argument is. A legal argument proves your case, but each legal argument that a person may present, it has a certain procedure, right, with it. So, as an example, you get a speeding ticket, right? It's a certain way that you prove that, you were speeding or you wasn't speeding. The state is going to have a particular way where they, have you speeding on a speeding camera, but you have to have a proper legal argument. But, most of our people, you would have a speeding ticket and you would approach the speeding ticket talking about international law. And, those are two separate legal arguments, when it comes to your nationality and the speeding ticket. Those two, legal arguments, they don't match up. So if you're fighting a traffic ticket, you have to have a proper legal argument for a fighting ticket. In our case, we're decolonizing. We have to have the proper legal argument to decolonize, as well as the proper venue to actually decolonize. And, whether it's the venue or it's a legal argument, a lot of our people, they don't really understand that concept. So, they'll try to fight, fire, with grass. You got to fight fire with fire. But you have to have a proper legal argument to win these cases with the claims that you're making. And, as an example with us, we're decolonized. We understand that decolonization is an international law matter. We understand that it's a proper venue for that. So we wouldn't be trying to decolonize in a domestic court. That's not the proper venue. And you can't bring that type of legal argument to a domestic court because the court is mute on the subject matter. And I mean, if the audience, if you study, you can look at a million different legal topics within the United States courts, and you can understand what cases they can hear, what cases they can hear, or what cases they never have heard before. And, in reference to the ICJ and just the United Nations, they deal with international disputes. And only a state, can be a part of the United Nations or bring a claim against another state. These little key things I'm pointing out, though, are the proper legal argument and the proper venue that a person has to understand when you try to bring a case against someone, whether it be domestically or it's international. You have to understand what the proper legal argument is as well as the proper venue, or you'll end up being a plaintiff in error. Your case will get denied because the court can't hear the case.
Okay. Thank you. I want to ask this question for those who are not familiar with the Moroccan treaties. You said the U.S. courts would have to go mute when it comes between a case that's concerning Moroccans. Okay. Is that according to the treaties?
Correct.
Okay.
Treaties.
Treaties being the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. You're saying that, I guess, you're referring to Article, what, 20, 21, 22?
Correct. It's several, 2021.
Okay. And in that article, I guess 20, if there's a dispute between an American citizen and a Moor, that case has to be settled through the consular court. I'm not saying the treaty verbatim, but very, very close. Is that correct?
Yes, if it's a dispute between a Moroccan and American, consular court will be the venue. But just to answer your question about why it becomes mute, the initial treaty that you're speaking about, the United States of America and the Empire of Morocco, they agreed if there was any dispute between our two countries, this is the way that we'll handle it. And the treaty agreements, they never did get trickled down into domestic courts. Domestic courts are not aware of it. So this is why the court becomes mute. So if a Moor who doesn't understand the provisions of the treaty try to bring this legal argument into a domestic courts, this is why they never get no remedy, because the court can't hear the matter. Because according to the treaties, it's the Moorish consular court who we decided, would hear the case, not your average domestic court, in Oregon or Texas or, Las Vegas or any of these domestic states. So it's very important Moors understand the proper venue and the proper legal argument, as we were stating, to change the trajectory of a case. Because when you bring any of these international law claims in domestic court, the whole legal procedure of it, of dealing with that national, it changes. The regular way that they was going to try to proceed and prosecute, that whole legal process, it changes. Once you're a real de jure Moor and you had a proper documentation, and they understand this. But just to answer your question, how it becomes mute, because it takes you back to the treaties. And the treaty said that council of court would decide the outcome of the case in a dispute between a Moroccan and an American, not your domestic, Texas court, Oregon court, Las Vegas court, etc. So that's what makes the court become mute, because it takes you back to the treaties.
Okay. So the courts in Texas, they're not a part of that treaty. So could they violate it based on that?
Correct. Yes, they can.
Okay. But there's a subgroup of the United States of America who's a party to that treaty. And therefore, it has to, what? What are the proper steps then if a Moor goes into a venue that belongs to the United States because he has lack of knowledge on where he's supposed to be? It's because that has happened. I've seen so-called Moorish Americans try to say that they're American. That they're Moroccans, and that the courts, the colonial courts, have no jurisdiction over them. To me, that's a false statement. Can you explain more, please?
Yes. Well, what actually was supposed to take place, when a Moor goes into a domestic court and you say, okay, well, hey, I'm Moroccan, you don't have, any jurisdiction over me. We'll start there. It's supposed to be certain properly written documents that the Moor, or the individual claiming to be a Moor, is going to present. And once these documents start getting presented, it's a procedure within the documents, whether it's, letting them know, you need counselor notification access, you need access to this mechanism, who your head of states are, for them just to reach out to your internal Moroccan state. But from that instance, the whole procedure, it changes. And, once the Council General of the respective Moroccan state is notified by the nationals who's actually in the court, then the legal procedure takes place to where now the Moroccan state is, in communication with the court, with the judge and with the prosecutor, letting them know about the treaties, letting them know about, which Moroccan law, international law was violated. And, from that point on, the domestic courts, realize that, they have no say, in the subject matter. They can't really rule or speak on it. And this starts a procedure where it brings up the federal question. I think the term is diversity of jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to take the steps to start getting in contact with the United States federal government, and let them know what the situation is, the person that they actually have in their jurisdiction, and the claims that he's making. And from that point on, it gets transferred, to the Moroccan Council Court. It's just a variety of things that can happen. I want to point that out too. When you're dealing with high profile situations like this in these domestic courts, it's not nothing happens fast. I tell Moors all the time, when you make the statement that you're not up under the jurisdiction of the United States, that's a very serious claim. That's not nothing light. And there's a lot of checks and balances that has to be checked to make sure what you're saying is true. Because if what you're saying is true, again, it changed the whole legal aspect of them dealing with you. But as far as the procedure, that's how that procedure pretty much go. If you're a true Moroccan national, you present the proper documentation. The court will do its due diligence in the whole legal aspect of dealing with you with change, versus if you was just a naturalized 14th Amendment American citizen.
Okay. Sultan, I have a question. Tell me, Do you know why the rest of the world is treating the Kingdom of Morocco as though it's the ancient state of the Empire of Morocco? Because yes, please answer that question.
Uh, Thank you for the question, Wazir. Well, at this point in time, in history, the proper legal term will be a presumption of continuity. And, basically what presumption of continuity means, it means that something can stand as the actual real until something comes to compare it to. And I'll break that down. Uh, until this point in time, when you say Morocco, the only thing, conceptually that a person's mind goes to is the Kingdom of Morocco. And, we have taken the steps to bring the Empire of Morocco out of a shallow grave. Well, with that action, us bringing the Empire of Morocco out of a shallow grave, now you're at a point where you have two Moroccos, which it always has been. But the world has just been moving forward on a presumption of continuity that the Kingdom of Morocco is the ancient state. And it's really amazing how this works. Until this right now, until we make the proper claim, involving the Moorish Council Court, the ICJ, and put the Empire of Morocco back on the world stage. The Kingdom of Morocco has never been contested. No one has ever been able to say, okay, well, what's the difference between the kingdom and what's the difference between the empire? And based on presumption of continuity, why I brought that term up, that term basically states that until it's some type of to another claimant steps up and it's some type of contest about the Kingdom of Morocco or this name can stand as the actual name. And we're just now waking up. So that point in time is just now about to happen. For us to make the proper claim and show the difference between the Kingdom of Morocco and the Empire of Morocco. But, just to answer your question, that is exactly why the world is treating the Kingdom of Morocco as if it's the ancient Empire of Morocco, because it has never been anything to compare it to until right now, in this point in time.
Okay. So now that the Empire of Morocco came out of its shallow grave and they put bodies in the government, such as yourself, as Sultan, and so on and so forth. And how do the Empire of Morocco make that claim internationally? What do they need to do?
Well, I mean, it's becoming a part of treaties, taking back control of our ancient treaties, on the record, ratify and deposit our constitutions. It's several legal steps that must be taken. Inaugurations, as you just pointed out, putting myself, you, and other government officials in the seats of office to have an effective government so we can, run the government, oversee the government. I don't think, a lot of our people really understand, what that looks like in actuality. A lot of Moors, they have their own perception of, what government looks like. And, if you really have a government, it should be this, or it should function like this, or I should see this, but not really understanding, what we're doing as far as decolonization, as well as taking the Empire of Morocco from a shallow state, bringing it back to existence. I don't think Moors really understand the legwork that goes behind that, and the procedures that it takes to bring an empire or government back, fully functioning. And if you do the research in history, whether it's the United States, the 13 colonies, USSR, Russia, I mean, like, you'll be able to identify, what those states, what they went through, trying to get their independence, what it took to get diplomatic relations with other states, what states don't have diplomatic relations. I mean, it's a matter really of doing your research about how this type of thing works. But I mean, I've noticed that a lot of Moors, they have their own perception of what they feel, it should look like and what it should and should not be. Again, it's a process. And, just back to your previous question, this is a process we have to go through, being that, we was about to get ridden up out of our inheritance. It's a lot of conspiring went on, with the Kingdom of Morocco as well as the United States, from a legal aspect, to not have us be in position, to take back control of our inheritance or the land. And it's about to come to light. In the United States, they're aware of it, as well as I'm pretty sure the Kingdom of Morocco is. But the game is pretty much to try to keep it, hush as long as possible. Because to really be honest about it, we don't want that can stop us. If we implode, if we continue not to, push the envelope forward and go through the legal process that it takes to take back control of the Empire of Morocco and the land from a lawful perspective.
Sultan, can you explain why the Empire of Morocco is receiving so much aid from the United States and in the Union? And yet, do you know how many military bases from the European Union or the United States are in Morocco?
Thank you for the question. Well, as far as an exact number, I'm not for sure the exact number, but I believe the European states as well as the United States, they have military bases located in the Middle East, somewhere within those regions. And again, that's a form of neo-colonialism. And we all have to understand the Arabs, they're settlers, they're colonizers as well. Those were the first ones that actual colonized, the Moors or the Africans, etc. In the Middle East. And again, man, the Moors, we've been missing from the scene for so long that it's a lot, that we have to clean up and we have to unravel. But we just have to understand that this has to be done from a strict legal, perspective. We were speaking about Pacific settlement of disputes during the Charter of the United Nations. It's certain legal steps that, must be taken before you can get to the legal aspect of judicial settlement. You got arbitration, reconciliation, negotiations. These things have to take place before you get to a court setting. And the Empire of Morocco, we've been taking those steps. It's not something that just happens immediately. You send notice out, then the other party, they have an opportunity, to respond, or, if they don't respond, the next step within the process takes place. But I think, if anything, I just want to press upon everyone, decolonization and, and getting the land back. It's just a big lawsuit that has to be, brought in a particular type of way. And it has to be done to the T. But I can say the difference between, the Empire of Morocco and what we're doing in other states, as far as Puerto Rico, Guam, these other states, we're the first people to decolonize on planet Earth with treaties. It puts us in a prior status already. We're doing negotiating with the European states, or as an example, the United States. And what makes that so special is, again, we already in a certain class with dealing with them, but within our treaties is actual legal procedures that needed to take place, before we even got involved with the United Nations or the ICJ. And that's kind of where we are now in the process, according to our treaties. The only way that Moroccan law can be, enforced against the United States or any of the European states would be through Council of Court. And the Council of Court here soon is about to have that Council of Court case. It will be the United States of America versus the Empire of Morocco. And, it's a straightforward, lawful venue. The United States, they will get the opportunity to come and speak. Their due process will be accorded to them, what's allowed by the treaties. And, from that point on, we'll see what takes place. Again, they have opportunity to show up. They have an opportunity to speak. on behalf of the United States, and some of the violations that they're accused of, and just depending what happens there, it'll be a decision made if the United Nations or the ICJ needs to get involved. So from a legal aspect, the ball is really kind of in the United States' hand. They still have an opportunity to do what's right and uphold their treaty obligations. So that is just to be seen when that time particularly comes. I would like for them to do the right thing. The Empire of Morocco, we come in peace. We just want to stick to the contract. And, us being Moroccans and taking the proper legal steps put us in position to be the competent authority. We have a right to speak on the people, and we have a right to enforce the treaties and the contract. And, that's what we're going to do. But I yield with that.
Okay. So if they come to the MCC, the United States, then they're recognizing, I would think, the Empire of Morocco. And therefore, if they recognize the Empire of Morocco, guess what? They recognize the treaties. That's my assumption. And if they recognize the treaties, then the treaty says quite a bit. Jurisdiction is talked about, taxation is talked about, policing is talked about, banking is talked about. So there's a lot of things that the treaty mentions that gives the Empire of Morocco a elevated position. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, everything you just said is absolutely correct. But whether they show up or they don't show up, they're already recognizing the treaties. We can go back to the 1952 case, France versus United States. Those treaties have been spoken about. They're getting enforced, and from a psychological aspect, Moors or people around the world need to understand the world functions in the way that it does because of these treaties. They're just broke up into so many parts, with how they're operating in Russia, how they're operating in Europe, how they're operating over in the United States. But the foundation of the world order that's here now, they all stream from these treaties. And you'll hear the United States say, the longest standing treaty that they have is with the Empire of Morocco, not the Kingdom, because the Kingdom wasn't even in existence when the initial treaty was signed, 1836, between Empire of Morocco and the United States of America. So, they understand that these treaties are in full force and effect. Them not attending, though, is them trying to control the tempo and the narrative of, them 100% letting us know that, they're in full force and effect, and them letting us know that, okay, we know that you all took the legal procedures necessary to bring the Empire of Morocco back into full existence. And, you are the competent authority, and you do have a right, to start a state bank, to collect taxes, and all the things just mentioned within those treaties. So I guess it's just, the actual fact of them looking us straight in our eye, letting us know, that the cat's out the bag. If anything, it's just that point. I feel like they would start deny and defend, just to put that perspective on hold, or keep it away from us as long as possible. That they 100% understand what we're saying. But I mean, I can attest to this. You can. We've been involved with this almost going on 5 years. And, it's so much things that I've seen that, the publics, they're not even aware of, that we know fully 100% that they understand what's taking place. And we're on the right road, we're on the right path. Me just being a type of person that studies, I understand that it's just much more complex than what the average person will really pretty much understand once you understand, what's all at stake, and, how the world is just going to change in general. I spoke about this earlier, but I'll add this perspective. Again, we're the first group of people to decolonize with treaties. Why does that matter? Well, what we're doing, it's not just going to affect over here in the West. This is going to have a trickle out effect, in France, Germany, Russia. Those Moors are going to decolonize as well. We're the first Moors to not only decolonize with treaties, but we're the first ones to decolonize on the same landmass as the colonists. Mm-hmm. So, as an example, Burkina Faso, you had France had them under colonization, but they didn't live there. So they were somewhere else. So, they had a form of neo-colonialism, but I'm just pointing out the distinction that the colonists wasn't living in the same landmass as Burkina Faso. But here it is, fast forward to us. We live here with the Americans. And the United States is the first one to feel the effects of people decolonizing on the same landmass that you live on. So, rest of the European states in the world, they're watching, seeing how the United States is going to actually deal with this because they're the first. And they know in time, this effect is going to just sprawl out all over the world. Once Moors in different parts of the empire, they wake up and understand that, Russia, India, these certain countries are a part of the empire. And, there is a higher jurisdiction to give the indigenous people back their land and their rights and their sovereignty. So, it's going to have a trickle effect. It's just going to splash out everywhere across planet Earth. So, and I just add that, just to show the significance of what we're doing and just, again, how this has never been done in history and time, those key aspects. Okay.
I want to say thank you very much for your time, Sultan. It's been a pleasure speaking with you again. But before we close out of the Moorish podcast, do you have any last words that you want to share with us?
Yes, I want to thank everyone for taking the time out, to spend some time with me to hear me speak on certain topics. I want everyone to go to Impact Study Sessions. I think the latest one out is 185. It's a wonderful class. I also encourage everyone to go to the Empire of Morocco Moors podcast on YouTube. It's a lot of good clips of myself, the speaker, as well as Chief Justice Jay Bay, speaking on a lot of topics that are very important to us as a people, and getting you more educated about your Moroccan nationality. Thank you for having me, Wazir.
Well, thank you very much for being here. Again, my name is Amir Hassan El, Vice Prime Minister, and we have the Sultan of the Empire of Morocco, Kendon Bey, and we look forward to speaking with him again. Until next time, stay positive and get a chance, watch the Moorish podcast. Thank you.